Welcome to the Art of Listening to Your Body podcast. My name is Dr. Jinong and I'm your host. I'm a cathartic release therapist, professionally trained as an osteopath, psychosomatic therapist, Western acupuncturist, and herbalist. I'm fascinated by the mind-body connection and how your physical body is a manifestation of your emotional state. I help people get unstuck from their chronic pain, whether it be physical or emotional, and live the life they truly desire, grounded in values and driven by purpose. My aim is to create awareness to the underlying emotions behind pain, injury, and disease in the body, as well as behavioural dysfunctions and mental imbalances that present. I do this using a unique blend of Eastern and Western philosophies and a good dose of intuition. Join me to learn more about the story of your body, what different issues may indicate, how to release emotions so that you can prevent problems, as well as inspiring pain story interviews. Today I'm joined by Matt Ode, who at the age of 24 was diagnosed with an aggressive testicular cancer. After some rounds of chemotherapy, he found himself in a 2-week non-induced coma where he faced multiple near-death experiences. When he woke, he had to relearn to live his entire life, including moving. Through years of perseverance and hard work, Matt is now a Keynote inspirational speaker and cancer advocate and mentor. He loves to share his message and story to help individuals transform their setbacks into their superpowers while teaching them how to create an impactful story and message to share to the world. Welcome to the podcast, Matt. I'm just going to get you to launch straight into it and tell us a bit about who you are and your experience.
Yeah, first, thank you for having me, Jen. I appreciate it. I'm excited to, share my story, but more importantly, I think the lessons I learned along the way to your community today. So cool to get to speak with you across the world from, all the way from Cleveland, Ohio in the United States. So with that being said, a little bit about myself. I'm 29 years old right now, and at 24 years old, I was diagnosed with the highest stage of testicular cancer. And here's what happened. I was a personal trainer at the time. I was very healthy. I mean, my entire life was basically predicated to health. I was eating the right foods, working out 6 to 7 days a week. I was sleeping, 7-8 hours, a night, making sure I did everything right, mental, emotionally, and physically. And all of a sudden, I started getting these minor back pains over the summer. I just started dating my girlfriend at the time, and I felt terrible because we were doing all these summer activities, and I just couldn't start, I couldn't do them anymore, from kayaking to hiking to all these fun things. And, as a young adult, as 24-year-old young adult, you feel invincible. You feel like anything that goes your way, you're going to be just fine. And of course, obviously with me being so healthy, I just thought it could be lifting or whatever. But the back pains kept getting worse and worse and worse. And one night I was over at Lauren's house and I ended up puking up blood. Got rushed to the emergency room. And they found out that I had lost 2/3 of the blood circulating in my body, which is actually equivalent to being shot with a gun. So they gave me 6 bags of blood, rushed me into an emergency surgery that night because they thought I was, they couldn't figure out what was causing the bleeding. And the next morning I wake up, my doctor has this blank stare in his eyes, comes over to me, sits down, and he says, "Matt, we found an 11-centimeter tumor in your small intestine. We are almost 100% positive it's cancerous, and we have to rush you to the main campus of the Cleveland Clinic immediately." And the Cleveland Clinic is, thank goodness, one of the top hospitals in the entire world, and definitely in the U.S. And it was right at my doorstep. So that's when, before I get into, when they shipped me off there, I just remember it was just me and my parents at the time. And I remember looking at them, and they were crying. And instead of me crying, I felt as this male that I needed to hold in my emotions, to be strong for them, to be strong for Lauren, who's my girlfriend, and, that to share the news to her, to my friends and everything. And little did I know that every time, and this is to mostly men, because you women are usually really good at this. You're really a lot better than us, at least, at sharing your emotions. And for us men, I truly believe a lot of the emotional, a lot of the mental health trauma and issues come from holding in difficult moments in our lives and feeling like we're either alone or feeling like we need to be strong and we can't express it to anybody. And I truly believe every time we have a situation or a setback in our life, it's just an extra weight lifted on our shoulders until we're ready to just speak out to one person. I always say just speak out to, there's two different people you can speak out to. Number one, either the person that you know, like, and trust. It could be a loved one. It could be a friend. It could just be, your spouse or whoever it is, or somebody you can relate to, somebody who's gone through an experience that is similar to yours, that okay, when I share this with them, they're going to know the feelings that I'm going through. So for me, at first, I was just holding it in for a few days and it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And I was creating anxiety. I was creating false stories in my head. And then all of a sudden, Lauren arrives. I'm at the clinic. I just found out I had the highest stage of testicular cancer after they did a ton of tests on me. And she walks in and I'm just scared to death because I didn't know if she was going to stay with me. I didn't know if she was going to, leave, because to be together for 2 months and then for me to be diagnosed with cancer and to put that burden on her, it's a lot. But it was the total opposite. And we just kind of both broke down, and I finally was able to release my emotions. And I'm telling you, it was like 1,000,000 pounds of just all this stress and anger and uncertainty just kind of slowly coming off my shoulders. And it finally allowed me to take a breath, take a step back and say, okay, what are the steps I need to take in order to get to where I need to do to heal myself? Because a lot of the times we cloud ourselves of what we really need to go because we're too afraid to express our emotions. And yes, some women probably need to hear this too, but it's mostly men, because I'm telling you, I've seen it day in and day out. I'll get into this, but I have a Facebook group of close to now 5,000 patients, survivors, and caregivers. And it's mostly the women that are willing to speak out. And when we get the men to do that, it's very powerful. So, but yeah, so that's how it was diagnosed. That was kind of the whole journey with, being diagnosed. And I knew right then when, Lauren was going to be with me that she was going to be a vital part of this journey. It was going to be like, my rock. And so right after I got diagnosed, to put things in perspective of how advanced my cancer was, they do what's called a tumor marker. So you have what's called your AFP. And this is how they track your tumors. And for men, and it might be women as well, your tumor markers for your AFP wants to be below 5. Mine was over 75,000. It was off the chart. They couldn't even read it. My cancer is spread all over my body. Thank goodness not my brain, but pretty much all over my body. And so I got put on 5 rounds of what's called BEP. It's bleomycin, etoposide, and cisplatin. It's extremely potent, extremely just strong drugs that can really wear you down. And, while I was on chemo, I mean, anybody who is listening and knows somebody who's been on chemo, or if you've been on chemo, I've had all the symptoms, nausea, fatigue, getting sick, getting high temperatures, high blood pressure, having allergic reactions. I mean, I've had it all, and it was just an up and down journey. And it was very easy to become a victim of that circumstance. But there's this famous saying that I learned that I truly could use into my life. And that is, everything in life happens for you, not to you. And what that means basically is you can take any situation that in your life that is unfair, that you can say, why me, that is just so challenging. And you can look at it 2 totally different ways. You could say, why is this happening to me? Meaning blaming other people, making excuses, having a pity party, becoming the victim. Or for me, I'm Christian, so blaming God. Or you can flip the script and say, how is this happening for me? And say, how is this a lesson? How can I grow into a better version of myself? And ultimately, where you want to try true fulfillment, true abundance, true happiness in your life, how can I take this experience and impact the next person who's going through something similar as me. And yes, that may be, months or years down the road, but ultimately you can have that mindset. Anything is possible, anything. And that's what I started to tell myself was like, listen, probably one of the biggest mental shifts and hurdles during chemo that really got me to doing this was, if any of you have had, some type of pet or anything, I had a 3-year-old puppy. And he was diagnosed with cancer about 6 months before me. I took him to all his chemo sessions, and we were, basically like chemo brothers together. And he passed away like right in the middle of my chemotherapy, and I just broke down. He was only 3 years old, and it was like losing a best friend. And that right there was my first time where I really went into a why me victim mentality of, I don't want to go to chemo anymore, blaming God, doing all these negative things in my mindset, and for about 2 or 3 days. And then I quickly realized that this is getting me absolutely nowhere. And that's what allowed me to shift my mindset. So wherever you're at in your journey, if you're having this victim mentality, this why me mentality, it's okay. This is why I say it's okay to be angry in the moment. It's okay to be stressed out. It's okay to have these thoughts. But if you live in those thoughts, that's what causes true anxiety. That's what causes true depression. That's what causes true PTSD, is when you live in them. So don't stay in that situation too long. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be upset. But then you need to flip your mindset and start looking at it as a lesson. And that's what I did. And it allowed me to finish chemotherapy. So I don't know if you have any questions before I keep going, because I don't want to, just ramble on. But that's kind of my whole journey of diagnosis and chemo.
Yeah. No, I do have lots of questions, and I like your mindset. But the reason I do get people on here is to find out what helped you switch your mindset, because you obviously had a crisis point with the testicular cancer, and there's a little bit more stuff that happened after, before the chemo, maybe the kidney and the liver failure. Can you just go into that? And I would love to find out a little bit more about who you were before this. Because you are a big believer in how emotions and traumas manifest in the body, and if you have any insight into that as well. So a little bit more about the journey with the cancer, because you ended up in kidney and liver failure.
Yeah, that was after chemotherapy. So, before all of it, I actually I don't tell this too much on podcasts, but probably 3 years before cancer, I had massive anxiety in my life, where I would get panic attacks. I've had an ambulance called on me before. So I've dealt with mental health issues in the past before I was even diagnosed with cancer. And me being able to overcome anxiety then, you would think it would just automatically reoccur, but I was almost not prepared. Obviously, you're never prepared for cancer. But what I'm saying is when difficult situations came, I already had techniques that I could use, whether it's breathing techniques, whether it's visualization, whether it is getting outside, getting fresh air, or talking to certain people, different techniques that help me through the process. And so that really helped me. But after cancer, obviously, or after chemo, I had a lot more complications that were definitely unexpected, and nobody could really prepare themselves for. So what had happened was my doctor sat down with me and he goes, Matt, we have some good news and we have some bad news. And the good news is your tumor is shrunk from 11 centimeters to 3 centimeters. The chemo worked. You're doing awesome. I'm like, great. And he's like, even some of the cancer, cells and everything is diminishing in your body. But he said the bad news is your tumor's wrapped around what's called your inferior vena cava. Now, your inferior vena cava is basically a central vein that goes from the bottom of your upper body to your heart. We're going to have an 11-hour surgery with 4 different surgeons involved, and we don't know the complications that it's going to entail. So for 2 weeks before I had that surgery, that was one of the longest 2 weeks of my life, to say the least. But I had to really stay strong in my faith, rely on my support system, and just stay focused on one thing a day that will keep pushing me forward. And, I get the surgery done. And going into the surgery, I was about roughly 140 to 145 pounds. So I had lost about 40 pounds during chemotherapy. Coming out of the surgery, I was close to 200 pounds. What had happened was they made a massive incision on my left hip to my right hip, but when they took out the vena cava, they took out the rest of the cancer and the tumor in my body, it decided to pretty much shut down. And I think it went to this survival mode, and it just started my whole body. I remember waking up, and for 3 days I couldn't even move. And I almost looked like just like this, like the Michelin Man, if you even know who that is. It's just like this big person with like all of this swelling around my stomach, my arms, my legs. And so after about a week, my doctor said, the draining should go away. We have a draining tube and you should be okay. Well, another week goes by. I'm out of the hospital now. And all of a sudden the draining just stops just like that. And it's not in a good way either. And I'm in so much pain. They had me on Oxycontin, Percocet, any type of painkilling drug, and it was doing nothing. So I get rushed to the emergency room. They put me in an ambulance. They get me to the clinic, and they had to end up doing basically a surgery. They had to do 3 surgeries where they had to drain 7 liters of fluid out of my stomach, causing me to then go into complete kidney and liver failure. I had a cone drilled inside my head to relieve potential brain swelling. I had a catheter in my chest and in my neck because they thought I was going to be on dialysis the rest of my life. And I fell into a 2-week non-induced coma. And, if it's okay, and if it's not, it's all right. Just a story of faith. And I don't push faith on anybody, but like for me, just like sharing my story of like how it really, saved my life. For it. Okay. So my mom, Christian, very faith-based. She held 3 massive local massive prayer services where hundreds of people would pray at my local church and thousands around the world. This is what they told me. Thousands, literally everywhere around the world. And Lauren and my parents were in that ICU room all 14 days with me while I was in my coma. And Lauren would come up to me every day, hold my hand, and pray for me, pray for healing, pray for me to wake up. And on the last day, in the middle of the last prayer services, hundreds of people were praying around the world. As thousands of people were praying, hundreds in the church, thousands around the world. And Lauren was holding my hand praying. Was the day that I woke up from the coma, was the moment I woke up from the coma. And she rushed over to the doctors. They didn't believe her. They come rushing in. I see my eyes opening, I see my hand start to wiggle, and that was my way of, listening to God and him telling me, Matt, this isn't the end of your journey. This is just the beginning. And my question to a lot of you, if you feel like you're in a rock bottom situation right now, whether it's financially, with your health, with your relationship, I want you to know that that's not a bad thing. That is actually potentially one of the best things that can happen for you, because what it allows you to do is it can change your life into a 180 and point you in the direction you've always meant to go. A lot of the times we were always going in this wrong direction and we hit this rock bottom. And this is our chance that the only place you can go in rock bottom is up. The only place you can go. So remember, if you are in a difficult situation, you don't know where you're going, you're so uncertain, you feel like you're lost, this might be that time where it's actually the new beginning of a brand new, more purposeful and impactful and meaningful life for you. So for me, a week out of my coma, they took the breathing tube out of my mouth. I'm starting to kind of know where I'm at, and they go to take out one of the catheters in my neck. I end up having an arrhythm heartbeat, which is like a 0.001% chance. I end up going into cardiac arrest. They have to do 8 minutes of CPR on me, and I fall into another 1-week coma. This time I wake up, it's been close to a month in the ICU, and I learned quickly that I have to completely relearn to live my life again. I mean, I couldn't move my hands, I couldn't move anything when I woke up. And for 2 weeks, it took me from laying in my bed to taking my very first steps again with 4 nurses every single day helping me. And eventually I was out of that ICU room and into a recovery room. And at this point, 3 days into the recovery room, I'm almost ready to get out of this hospital. And as they're wheeling me, not out of the hospital, but to my final stages of physical therapy, my stitches burst open. I get rushed into a 5th major surgery, and they have to do what's called an open wound surgery on me. They had to take out all of my abdominal muscles. They had to leave a football-sized mesh on my stomach, and I was back in the ICU room. And if I wasn't in rock bottom back then, I was officially in rock bottom now. And here's what I look at life as. I look at life's setbacks as a slingshot. Now, here's what I mean. Every setback you have, think of that slingshot getting one more resistance back, one more resistance. I was diagnosed with cancer. My puppy passed away during chemo. I had an 11-hour surgery. I was in a coma with kidney and liver failure. All of these setbacks, but think of it as this slingshot. And one day, I'm telling you, if you just never give up on yourself, just never give up on yourself, that slingshot's going to go. And when it goes, it is going to go so much further than you ever thought. You are going to break through barriers you never thought. You are going to have opportunities you never thought. You are going to meet new people and have new, just a new life in general, a new identity, but a good one. And that's what it was for me. Here's what happened. I woke up, my hands were tied to the bed because they didn't want me touching my wound. And I had a breathing tube in my mouth. And for 2 days, they didn't know that I was awake enough to be able to, breathe on my own and all this. So I had to, for 2 days, sit there and just pray and think. And when they finally, took the breathing tube out, took the ropes off me, I walked further. It was like that slingshot. I walked further than I ever did previous to the ICU, previous than I ever did to any of the recovery rooms. And I was on this one-way mission. And soon enough, after 53 days in the hospital, after over 40 days in the ICU, I was released. And here's another powerful story. I met Lauren on March 17th of 2016, which is St. Patrick's Day here in the US. I don't know if you guys celebrate that in New Zealand, but it's like a lucky day. It's a special day. Exactly 1 year later, on March 17th of 2017 was the day I was released after 53 days in the hospital. And Lauren, stayed all 53 days in that hospital. She would sleep there. The only time she ever left was during work. And she even had her birthday during that time. It was Valentine's Day during that time, everything. And she just said, I'm not leaving. And it was like an angel sent down for me. And I guess this is my next question to anybody out there. Who is that one person in your life that when you're going through difficult moments in your life is going to be there for you? And a lot of times it's easy for us to take that person for granted. And for me, I've done that multiple times. So if you know who that person is and you're watching today, send them a message, give them a phone call, or if you live with them, go up to them and tell them one thing. It can just be one thing that they've done for you that is meaningful. And it is going to just bring so much light into their day and also your day as well, because you know that you're showing appreciation to that person who has just been there for you for so long. And that person was Lauren and my parents for sure. And so coming out of that hospital, it was not rainbows and butterflies. I'll tell you that. I remember I told you I was about 200 pounds. I was now 110 pounds in 53 days. I couldn't eat or drink anything for about 45 of the 53 days there. Everything was IV. And I was skin and bone. And I had so much mental and emotional trauma, let alone the physical part, which was, extremely, excruciating. But the emotional, physical, and mental trauma from me being this fit personal trainer 8 months ago to now this skeleton with a massive lump on my stomach with a huge wound, looking like a skeleton. And it was just like, it was diminishing. And that was my next bout of why me, victim mentality. And I stopped doing so much, of the rehab because I didn't have the accountability of the nurses every day, of the doctors every day. And within 2 weeks, I was back into the hospital with a standing heart rate of 150 beats a minute. My blood pressure was through the roof, and my temperature was at about 103 to 104 degrees. And I had to stay there for about 5 days. And when I came home, Lauren and I basically sat down and we came to the conclusion that, Matt, if you're going to keep living life as a victim to the situation, you seriously may not be here next month. And that was the truth. And that's when I learned the importance of perspective, gratitude, and number one, living in the present moment. And it's easy to say, oh, live in the present moment. Don't let the past define you. But when it's life or death, you have no other option. And that's what it was for me. It was, what do I need to focus on today? And this is what I did. I said, I'm going to drown out all the noise and I'm going to focus on one thing. That's it. One thing. that's going to get me to my destination. And at that time was just healing myself, just getting my strength back, getting my mental attitude back, and releasing a lot of the emotional baggage I have in my life. And what I did, this is for anybody that's on a health journey or any type of journey, this is what you can do too. I picked up a 5-pound dumbbell and I started to do bicep curls for 10 minutes. That's all I did, 10, 15 minutes. You know, I did the next day, the same thing. And then what I used to do was I had my driveway and I'd set up my parents would set up 2 lawn chairs for me. And I would walk to that driveway, to the end of the driveway, sit down, and then walk back. You know what I did the next day? I moved those lawn chairs just a little further, making small progress every day. And it's like that famous saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. That's what it means by compounding daily wins. I call it winning the day, because this is what happens. If you can win 4 or 5 of the days, that means you've won the week. If you can win 3 out of the 4 weeks, that means you've won the month. If you can win 7, 8, 9 months out of the year, guess what that means? You've won the year. And if you won the year, you are going to be such a different, better version of yourself than you were a year ago. And people underestimate the power of what they can do in a year, or really underestimate the power of what they can do in 5 months. And they overestimate what they can do in a day or a week because we want instant gratification. Stop worrying about the destination and start focusing on the journey. Start focusing on the lessons. Start focusing on what you can do to push yourself forward, and then grow into the person that you're truly meant to be. And it took me 2 years. Jen, it took me 2 years to recover mentally, emotionally, and physically, you know, but slowly, once I started doing that and focusing on one thing a day, it built momentum into my life.
And I have to stop you. I've got a lot of questions.
Yeah, I'm just rambling, so I love this. Keep going.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So I really want to know, though, because you're like a cat. You've gone through 5 lives or maybe 6 lives. But you've obviously got a lot of fire behind you and you're very inspired and you're very motivating. But how did you get this mindset? And was it only after you left the hospital and you had been in a coma a number of times, or were you getting glimpses of hope while you were in the hospital, going through your chemo, then your puppy dying as well?
Yeah, I think what got me to change my mindset was, number one, was my faith. Because at the end of the day, when you are going through an extremely challenging moment in your life, it is you. That's it. It's you and whatever you believe in. And, you know, I know you say you have support and everything, but it's a lonely journey in that very beginning part. And you could feel isolated because people don't understand exactly what you're going through. So that's number one. And number two is, no doubt, surrounding yourself with people that are going to uplift you during your journey. And I had 2 sets of people, I would say, in my journeys, one with cancer and then one with me finding my purpose in life. And I'll get into that in a second. But number 3 was keeping the promises I made to myself. That is the ultimate way of changing your mindset, building confidence in your life, and feeling like you can conquer anything that comes your way. And what it means is, by keeping the promises you make to yourself, means when you say you're going to go and do something that day, like for me, when I was in the hospital and I would tell myself, I'm going to walk 50 meters today. I'm just going to walk 50 meters. And I actually did it. I had so much confidence in myself and it built so much momentum. So I stopped making excuses of, oh, I'm tired, or, oh, this or that. No, I'm going to find a way to do this. And when you find a way to do something like that, your mindset becomes unstoppable. It really
was
does.
This something that you were able to just do on your own, or were there other people supporting you? Like, was Lauren saying really positive things to you? Were your parents, with the nurses? Like, how did you get this? Were you of this mindset beforehand? Like, you'd gone through anxiety and so you had a few tools under your belt then. Like, is this innate to you? Because for some people, you know, they're just like, how do you get that? And it might be a book that you read or a seminar that you go and watch, or the words that someone says to you. Or was it just that you had these moments and these glimpses?
Yeah, I would no doubt. Well, number one, it's like I was saying, like, number one is, you have to ask for help when you need it. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because at times, there were times where I'm like questioning myself. Oh, can I do this? Can I not? And Lauren or my parents were like, come on, Matt, you can do this. And I would get that hype. I get that push. I get that momentum. That helped me a ton in my recovery aspect. And it shifted me into focusing on okay, when there's a task today, I'm getting this done, because if I don't feel like I can do it, somebody else that I care about is going to push me. And that's the importance of surrounding yourself. Or the doctors or the nurses would come in and say, hey, listen, we have to do X, Y, and Z. And it would make a massive difference. So that was part of it. Definitely. I'm telling you, like I said before, you can't fight your battles alone. It is going to be lonely in the beginning, but you cannot fight your battles alone. You can't. Cancer is not meant to be by yourself. And I know some people are here well, I don't have anybody in my life. I promise you, if you ask for help, somebody's going to be there to help you. This is the whole beginning of the story. Remember when I said you have to release your emotions? I'm not saying you have to release it to the world, but you have to release it to either somebody you can relate to, meaning if you have no friends, let's just pretend it was worst case scenario. You have no friends, you have no family, you have nobody that supports you. Go find a community of people who can relate. And I swear, you share your story of what you're going through, you're going to get thousands of people there for you. Thousands. I have a group. I have a Facebook group. This is why I built it. I built a Facebook group with almost 5,000 members now. And anytime somebody posts something about their journey, hundreds of people saying, I'm here for you. If you need something, DM me. I'm praying for you. I'll give you advice and whatever you ask for, blah, blah, blah. So don't ever think you don't have somebody there. There's so many people praying. There's so many people on this world that are there for you. So stop making the excuse that you feel like you're alone, because I know it's a lonely journey at first, but you are not alone in this journey. Okay. So that would be my way of saying that's how you get yourself on track. Find support, find people to help you, stay strong in your faith, and keep the promises you make to yourself day in and day out, because that is what's going to build momentum, confidence, and then ultimately create rituals and routines in your life. That is when you wake up, instead of you saying, why do I have to go do this? You just know you're going to freaking go do it.
All right, let's get into your perspective on emotions and what they do to you when they're stored inside of you. And I want to go the anxiety that you used to have prior to the cancer. And then, what are actually, this is going to be a separate question. So, tell me a little bit about your perspective on emotions when we don't express them. And on the whole, I do think women do it more, but women could do it even more. And definitely the men could get on board. And I think there is a huge community of men out there who want that support. And absolutely, it is out there.
Yeah, 100%. So backtrack to anxiety, before cancer, I hated sharing it with people. I really did, because I felt like, once again, I did not go to support groups or anything like that. And I'm not saying you have to go to support groups, but I wish I would have at least shared it with I started to share it with my parents, and that was it. And that finally helped. But for a while I bottled it in. And one day I had an actual panic attack, and I had an ambulance called on me because I thought I was having a heart attack. And that's when I realized I have to be okay with opening up and saying, hey, I need help. It's okay to ask for help. And, for me, I had trigger points of when my anxiety would occur. For me, whenever I get in a car and go on the highway, I felt trapped for some reason. It's just weird. Everyone has their own trigger points of depression, anxiety, PTSD, whatever it is. Mine was going on a highway, and I've had to stop in the middle of the highway before and just ask people to come pick me up. It was crazy. It was just I didn't know how to overcome it. And I started reading books, and I started, like I said, I started to take action on what I was dealing with. A lot of people that are going through these emotional mental trauma, they are just letting those thoughts define them. Remember how I said it's okay to be upset. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to have some type of anxious thoughts at times. But if you live in that situation and you don't take any action to try and heal it, it's going to define you. And it would, and it did define me. And it's a lot easier said than done to take action on these things, to take action on the techniques, to take action on asking for help, to take action to join support groups, to take action on, whatever it is that you're dealing with and facing your fears head on. But at some point, I'm going to tell you right now, the hard truth in life is nobody is going to save you but yourself. Obviously for me, because I'm faith-based, I believe God and Jesus will help me, but I'm just talking about people in general. No one's here to save you. They can try and help you, but at the end of the day, you're the one who has to take that leap, make that actionable step. So that's what I would say about mental health and anxiety.
Yeah. Your personal anxiety, do you have any idea what contributed to it?
Yeah, I do actually. I think I was just graduating from college. I was very uncertain of what I wanted to do with my life. Now I'm finally like getting into a job and like trying to figure out my life. And I was just putting so much pressure on myself of, Matt, I want to do something big. I want to go and do X, Y, and Z, but I wasn't quite there yet. I wasn't ready. And the more pressure I put on myself with no action involved created massive anxiety in my life. And, then it just became a spiraling effect to not even that anymore. It was just every day I'd wake up and I'd be in a cloud, so.
Yeah. And as you say, it's the process. You start little and then months and years down the track, you grow and you evolve into the person you want to be, and you're still on that path. What about your view on the testicular cancer and getting that? Do you think it was just a chance? Do you think there was any contributing factors?
I personally, and I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I really do believe, so I was physically in the best shape of my life, but mentally before I met Lauren, like right before I met Lauren, was in one of the most worst mental states of my life. And it wasn't anxiety. I was on a bad breakup, but I let it control me. And it got to the point where I would so depressed, so upset. And I truly believe that cancer and mental health can correlate, because when you have waking up with constant anger, constant depression, or constant stress, if you're trying to tell me that's not a chemical imbalance in your body, then you're crazy. And to have such an insane shift like that, because I was extreme, to have such an extreme shift like that in my life, that's how cancer generally forms. Is there's either a chemical or cells or things in your body that's just abnormal that creates this cancer. And I truly believe that partially, some's genetics, some is bad eating, some is smoking, things like that, but also mental health is a very big correlator as well. So I truly do believe testicular cancer had a part from the stress that I had dealt about 5 months before I was diagnosed. Even if I was feeling better talking with Lauren, it didn't matter. I think the damage was already starting to get done. Yeah.
So did you do any of that emotional work on that relationship afterwards?
The relationship before Lauren? Or I'm sorry, what do you mean? So
did you do any processing work? Did you have any counseling or psychology?
Yeah, I went to a psychologist before I met Lauren, and it didn't do me any good. So I think it was just the wrong psychologist. All she did, I understand they're there to listen, but I also would like some type of advice sometimes, and she gave me nothing. She would just listen, and she, it was not a big deal. But little did she know, it was more than the breakup; it was more the depression that I was facing. So, but I'm telling you, once I met Lauren, it really helped. It helped so much because it got my mind off of it. It allowed me to focus on hey, listen, life does not revolve around one person, Life is so more meaningful than just one person, especially a person that I was in a toxic relationship with, should have never been in the first place. And now I'm with somebody who truly cares about me, that we're in an amazing time together. So that really helped me heal. And I'm not saying that's going to heal all relationships. There's a grieving period, and there's a time to, be by yourself. And, for me, I think I was just ready for that next step, and it really helped me.
Yeah. Oh, I do like how you shared though that, there was something possibly there that was contributing, and the anger and the stress that you were feeling around that, and potentially how it manifested in this way. So do you feel like you're on the right life path now?
Definitely. Oh yeah.
And so what do you think the
like
lesson was in the cancer experience for you?
if I did not go through cancer, I think I'd still be totally lost. And I know it's crazy, but I truly believe that God put me through this for a reason. I'm telling you, any difficult moment you go through in life is for a reason. And I truly believe that that is your way of directing you towards what your purpose is in life. You do not grow through just pure success and pure easy path. You grow through the dirty, difficult failures, the no's, the people judging you, all of that. Everything you're afraid of, that's where you're at. Maximum fear is where maximum growth occurs. This is just the truth. And that's where I had my maximum growth was through cancer. And yet, though, I'm going to tell you right now, in order to be selfless in life, you must be selfish first. And it took me 2 years. And this is what I mean, is it took me 2 years after cancer. Remember, I was 110 pounds and all that. It took me 2 years to recover mentally, emotionally, and physically. And then I could say, all of this knowledge, all of these things, what's next? And I think a lot of people have that question going through cancer, going through a difficult situation, overcoming difficult situations. What's next? Because the problem is the people who care about you expect you to go back to your old version, but you know that you still have your kind qualities, but you are on a totally different path in life, a totally different direction for most people. And that was me. And I said, how do I do this? And that is when I started watching motivational videos. I got in front of a podcast of a guy named Ed Milet. He's an entrepreneur. He's also a very motivational speaker. And when I watched his video, this was really cool. This is what the podcast was called. It was called Broke to 400 Million. It just caught my attention. I was like, okay, how does dude make 400 million? And it had nothing to do with how he made 400 million. It had everything to do with all of the difficult moments and all of the failures he went to get to where he was today. And that's when it gave me a light bulb in my head of, whoa, why don't I just use all of my failures, all of my setbacks to go and impact other people? So I started surrounding myself with entrepreneurs. Remember, I told you there's different people I had to surround myself with because I couldn't stick with the same people that, I still have those incredible friends, but I couldn't just surround myself with those friends who still wanted to drink every weekend or had no ambition in trying to do something bigger with their lives. And there's no hard feelings like that, but you lose some friends in the process because they question you. They start gossiping about you, some of them. And I would say that's maybe only 10%, but that 10% hurts. And for me, I said, who do I need to surround myself with? And I started surrounding myself with entrepreneurs because they take a massive problem, they solve it, and they use it to change the world. And as I shared my story to them, because I'm going to tell you right now, I was deathly afraid to share this story. I mean, I could not go on there and share it like this. Like, I was deathly afraid. And the more I started to share it, though, the more people like, whoa, you need to get your message out there. And that's how I became a speaker. That's how I became a mentor. That's how I became this Facebook group with this cancer community. But it took time. It took years. It took practice. It took, remember, keep the promises I made to myself with consistency. So that's what kind of came to where I was.
Yeah, cool. I think it's great to look back on where you were versus where you are now. And what do you do?
Yeah, so I am a motivational speaker. So I speak to either corporations, so helping them through, people who feel like they have that bigger purpose. Like I was telling you before, they have a powerful message they want to share to the world, yet they just don't know exactly who to share it to, how to get across, what the message is. And I want to help them get the courage, all those limiting beliefs of I'm not good enough. What if somebody judges me? All of these things, and then helping them craft the right message to hit the people who need to help them. So I want to help people through that. So I'm doing motivational speaking and coaching through that. So as a mentor. And then on the other side, I'm doing more cancer advocacy. So I am, like with my Facebook group, I'm working every day with different patients, survivors, and caregivers to help them figure out what their next path is after cancer. And my ultimate goal is to excel my business to make enough money where I can put my sole purpose into my cancer community. And eventually one day I want to have an organization that helps, this is my ultimate goal, an organization that helps families financially whose children or young adults have been impacted by cancer. Because the last thing I ever want to see is somebody have to focus more on finances than they do about their children being diagnosed with cancer. And that is, I feel like, my life purpose is doing that. But I need to build capital and I need to build a business, and I want to do it in a meaningful way before I can get to my life purpose in that sense.
How are you going about doing that?
Getting on stage, this right here, starting a podcast, getting exposure. Social media is massive. Social media is, if you're not using social media to brand yourself, brand awareness is the number one thing you should be worrying about right now. How do you get yourself out there? Give as much free content, everything, give everything away. Stop holding yourself back. Give everything you have away, because at the end of the day, it's not about information. It's about implementation. People want you there because they want their own uniqueness implemented into their life. They can find any information you have on Google, but you're going to give it to them in a more powerful way so they can bring it into their life and implement it to where they need to go. That is my power. So that is how I'm doing it. I'm using LinkedIn, I'm using Instagram, I'm using Facebook, using YouTube, using podcasts, getting on live stages, and all of that is brand awareness, meaning people now know who I am. They can know, this is how you get people to become your clients. They know, like, and trust you by giving out as much free content. In the cancer community, I will never ask for anything from them. I will just give to them because that is like my family. But for people who are looking to elevate their lives as coaches, as mentors, as somebody who wants to get a powerful story out into the world, then we can talk about coaching. Then we can talk about, hey, how do I help you make money? And how do I help you get in front of the right clients and doing all of that? But that's two different aspects. And remember, don't get too ahead of yourself. Start with one thing, focus on it, and then expand. And when you can't do enough, hire somebody to delegate your tasks. I have a virtual assistant who reaches out. I do probably 2 to 3 podcasts a week. And the only way I can do that is for my virtual assistant helping me to reach out to people. I always have the initial or the final and all the other conversations, but a lot of the times that you see like an initial conversation, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's probably from my virtual assistant doing research in the cancer community and then me following up and making sure I have the conversation with that person. So for me and you, probably, yeah, she definitely reached out to you first. And then after that, it was fully me. So you have to figure out what you can do to delegate, what you can do to maximize yourself. And at the end of the day, the number one thing is brand awareness. Who are you? How do you give free value away and make it so that it's directly targeted towards the audience that needs to hear your message? Because at the end of the day, I could be speaking to everybody and I'm going to get nowhere. But if I'm speaking directly to coaches who have a powerful message that doesn't know exactly how to get it out to the world yet, but wants to make a huge impact, and I can help them with that, crafting their message, finding the right people, and getting them to where they need to be, that's pretty specific, and I can help them through that process.
Amazing. How long have you been doing it for?
Well, the coaching part, only about like 6 months, but the speaking for about 1.5 years now. So it has been, a journey, but I'll tell you right now, every day I just take imperfect action, so I love what I'm doing.
That's great. You can feel it. You're very, very passionate about what you do, and you've got quite a story behind you as well. So how do people find you if they want to follow you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, so best place to go is probably just my website because it has all my social media platforms on there, except for my Facebook group, which I'll be adding onto there. So I'll share both of those. So my website is Matt Ode, MATTODE, speaks.com. Hop on there if you're looking for a speaker. You can directly email me. There's a spot to email me. If you're looking to just connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or even YouTube, I have all my links there. And if you've been impacted by cancer in any way, patient, caregiver, survivor, join my Facebook group. It is called Cancer Patient/Survivor Community, Taking Back Your Life from Cancer. And I can send you the link if you want to share it.
I'll pop it in the notes.
Awesome. So those are my 2 ways to definitely find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with me today and with my audience. It was very insightful.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks for learning with me on the Art of Listening to Your Body podcast. If you like what you've heard, I would love if you could rate, review, and share with your friends. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. My handle is The Art of Listening to Your Body. If you're interested in working with me, I offer online courses for the general public and trainings for practitioners, therapists, and coaches. I also open limited one-to-one coaching spaces throughout the year. If you would like to find out more, head to my website, drjinong.com.